Brought to you by Penguin.
The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli, read by Simon Callow.
If you're coming to this Penguin classic for the first time, then we'd recommend that you skip the introduction for now and return to it later, as it contains details of the plot. Please skip forward to Chapter 1 now, if you'd rather not listen to the introduction yet.
Introduction by Anthony Grafton. The tyrant terrifies his subjects. Spying balefully on the world from his strongly fortified palace, as sensitive to approaching prey or predators as a spider delicately balanced at the centre of a web, he dominates the life of all around him. He takes credit for the achievements of nobler men who spend their substance on civic projects like great churches and other fine buildings. Entertaining the ambassadors of foreign powers at his own table, he makes decisions that affect the well-being of all his subjects without consulting anyone except his favourites. He turns his entire state into a machine for his own profit and that of a few friends, and he does not shrink from robbing wealthy men of their possessions, or pure young women of their virtue. All threats to his sole authority he resists with absolute ferocity. This description of a prince, solitary, vicious, grindingly cruel to those who stand in his way, sounds at first like a stray page from Machiavelli's Prince, a book which teaches effective tactics for the absolute ruler, and which many readers have seen as preaching ruthlessness and even glorying in bloodshed. But it comes from a very different source, the treatise on the government of Florence, of the Dominican friar Girolamo Savonarola, whose years of domination in Florentine politics from 1494 to 1498 coincided with the beginning of Machiavelli's mature life. The parallels between these two very different men are striking. Like Machiavelli, Savonarola led an active civic life, trying to preserve the republican form of government, which he saw as ideal for Florence, and wrote intense, powerfully imagined treatises on politics. Like Machiavelli, Savonarola cherished classical ideals. He believed that the Romans had created, if not a perfect, at least an exemplary republic, one whose institutions formed its citizens to be virtuous by making them participate regularly in civic life. Like Machiavelli, Savonarola experienced political realities at their most brutal. He knew the tactics and psychologies of Italy's tyrants, as well as the local traditions of the Florentine Republic, as his portrait of the tyrannical ruler shows. Worse still, he knew what it meant to lose the support of those who meant most to him. When his challenge to the authority of the Roman popes brought the interdict on his fellow Florentines, endangering their property and commercial ventures, many turned against him. One prominent citizen remarked in an emergency meeting that Savonarola deserved support but could not have it, since we in Italy are as we are. Property mattered more than loyalty, a proposition Machiavelli actually repeated in The Prince, when he remarked that men could forget the loss of their fathers more rapidly than that of their property. Like Machiavelli, finally, Savonarola saw his political career come to a disastrous end. The author of The Prince suffered political ostracism. The Dominican preacher underwent public execution in the Piazza della Signoria and became, for Machiavelli, the prototype of the unarmed prophet whose career in the real world must end in disaster. Machiavelli's Prince reads, when one comes to it without knowledge of its context, like an abstract manual, one whose tenets apply almost as well to a modern corporation as to a Renaissance state. But as the case of Savonarola suggests, Machiavelli was in many ways a characteristic product of Florence, the city in which he came to maturity, in whose government he served from 1498 to 1512, and for which he wrote the series of dazzlingly original books for which he is chiefly remembered, notably The Prince, the Discourses on the First Decade of Livy, the History of Florence, and Mandragola. Machiavelli's obsessive interest in how politics work, his passion for gossip about important men and high affairs, his desperate effort to frame rules that could predict how men would respond to political challenges and crises, all these and many other traits of character and intellect were shared with a large number of his fellow citizens. So were the political experiences that led him to depart from normal Florentine beliefs on some vital points.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?